Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on the Moed Katan daf Chav Hey, we are going to begin on the bottom of Chav Daled Mud Beis by the Mishnah. In Kairin, we do not rip. Full Choltzin, Rashi says Kisvehen, which refers to the removal of the garment near by the shoulders. The Ein Mavrin, we do not partake of Sudas Havra, which is the meal which is right after the Kvura. El Kroivav Shalmeis, only the 7 close relatives that are actually in Avelis. Then Mamrin el Almita Zakufa, and those people who go and are Menachem the Avelim, they should only be on a Mita Zakufa. They should be upright. Only the people who are actually in Avelis should be sitting in the Avelim chairs. However, everyone else should be sitting in the normal way. As we continue to Chavim Aleph, Ve'afil Chacham, does that mean even for a chacham, we're not going to do these things for them? V'asanya chacham shemeis hakol kroiviv salkadat. Who mean they're all relatives? We're not all related to him. El hakol ki kroivav hakol karin olav hakol cholzin olav hakol mavrin olav berachava. So we see that when it comes to a chacham, that you're supposed to do this as well. So Moed says l'tzricha delav chacham hu. Someone in a situation where he's not a chacham. Fine. So therefore, if you're not a chacham, the person who dies is not a chacham, so then it's only the zayin krovim. However, if the person was a chacham, then it relates to others as well. Vi adam chasher hu chayuv v'mechayiv lemikra. However, we shouldn't just stop there. Also, if the person who died was an adam kasher, that person who is a proper individual, you also should do kriya. Why does a person's children chas v'sholom die when they're young? It's kedei sheyivcha v'yisabel al adam kasher, in order that you should cry for a good person. So yivcha v'yisabel are voina kasholik minei. It's hard to exactly understand, like why, because your children died. That's the reason why this should happen. It doesn't correlate. It's actually saying that the punishment for one's children's death is because you did not feel the loss of an Adam Kasher, which is obviously very difficult to understand, but the significance of this is that if you do not feel the loss of someone who is good, it probably means that you have tremendous faults of your own, and that will probably also affect your children as well, because if you don't care about an Adam Kasher, that you wouldn't even mourn for that person, you don't feel the pain of the loss of an Adam Kasher, that obviously shows a poor reflection on yourself, which probably is how your children will be as well. However, on the opposite side, any person that does in fact cry for an Adam Kasher, in that situation, then you'll actually be forgiven for all of your sins. So b'shvil kavod shasalai, because of the honor that you did for them. So where it says delav adam kasher hu, again we're talking about a situation where the person was not an adam kasher. So we turn to TA16 right away, and he asks the question: Mahu scharo shel habayich masabel adam kasher shemes? So it'd be ma'ichan kol v'naisav. That his children will die when they are young. So again, the answer is, when do we apply this davka to the zayin kroivim? Is when the person who died was not an adam kosher. Weiter, so idekoi hasam b'shas yitzias neshama chivim mechayiv. Not only that, but if you were there and present when a person died, you also have to tear kriya. The Sanya of Shimon Elezer Omer ha'aymin al meis b'shas yitzias neshama chayiv l'kroi. You have to rip. Lama zed daimel l'sefer Torah shenisraf. It's comparable to a Torah that was burned, shechayiv l'kroya, that you actually will have to rend your garment, which is really an unbelievable thing. It's not talking about this person was a tzaddik, not this person was a Talmud Chacham. It's just stam any yid. Any yid who dies, it is comparable to a sefer Torah shenisraf, which just shows the chashivas of a Jew. Our answer is v'loi koi hasam v'shas yitzias neshama. Our mission is talking about where you weren't there when he died. Kinach nafshid Rav Safra, when Rav Safra died, lo kar rabbanan alei. They did not rip the garment for him. Which again, the question is, why wouldn't they should have, but they didn't do so. So Amalei Gamrinan Mine didn't we learn from him? So Amalhu Abaya Mitanya Harav Shemes Chacham Shemes Tanya. Right? It doesn't say your teacher, it's any Chacham. The Od Kol Yaima Shemaisni B'Puma B'Beimin Rasha. We're constantly learning from him. And Rashi says, Vavi Kamandi Gamrinan Mine. So it's hard to understand why we wouldn't have Torah Kriya. So Savar Madhava Hava. So they thought what was. Says Rashi, Hoyel Deloy Karu B'Shas Misa Sulu Kare. So they realized the truth is they should have done so, but now maybe it's too late. So just as long as they're still doing the Hesped, you can still do the Kriya. Savar Mikral altar. So they were thinking that we should probably at this point do it right now, even before the Hesped. So the kavod of doing the Kriya is by the Hesped, which I've said numerous times. That is what we're typically noyig. Right before the Hesped takes place, the officiating rabbi will take and participate in doing the Kriya for those relatives in a side room. So when Rav Huna died, Sefer Torah Apurye. They were thinking about putting a Sefer Torah on his casket, and that was a tremendous kavod, because that kibud, as Rashi says, is v'lemer kiyam zeh mashikosa b'zeh. That this person, Rav Huna, was mekayim everything in the Torah. Amar Rav Chisda. So on this, Rav Chisda said, Milsa debechayehu osfirle hashtaleikum le'evid le. He didn't hold this in general when he was alive, so you shouldn't do it to him now that he died. He saw they want to put this on a bed. And was the Sefer Torah on it. The kaf kada ara, and he put the jug on the ground. And he put the Sefer Torah on the top. He said the person is not allowed to sit on the same bed where there's a Torah. So if you're not allowed to sit on the same bed where the Torah is, because it shows a lack of covenant Torah, so too when it comes to putting it on the casket. Lo havi nafik puria mibaba. So they were not able to fit the casket through the door. So savar l'shalushi derech gagin. They thought maybe they should just cause it to go through some opening by the roof. We learned that Chacham Kaveda Derech Pesach, that you should put the mace through the door, not through the roof opening. Savar Lashnuye Mipurya Lapurya. They thought maybe they should remove him from one bed to another. In other words, like from one casket to the other, which may be thinner. So we don't move him around. You keep him where he is. That they rode this Aron el Egala Chadasha on this new wagon. Porus Baba Vafuka. They broke the doorpost open in order to be able to get him out. That was the only option of what they could do. Rashi says Shover HaPesach V'Yechivuhu, which widened the door so that he can get the mace out, to get Rav Huna out. Pasachli Rab Abba Roher Rabbeinu Shetishral of Shechina. Really, it's fit that the Shechina should have resided upon him. El Shebavel Garmele. The fact that he was in Bavel and not in Eretz Yisrael, and we know that the Shechina is not Shar B'chutz La'aretz, so therefore that's why the Shechina was not Shar in him. So Meisa Rav Nachman Bar Chisda v'Yarmelo Rav Chanan Bar Chisda. The pasuk in Yecheskel says, Haya Davar Hashem El Yecheskel Ben Buzi Hakoyin Be'eretz Kazdim. So we see beferish that Hashem did come to Yecheskel even if he was in Eretz Yisrael. So Gemara answers Tafachle Gavua Besandle, that he hit him with his shoe, like he almost like tapped him with his foot. Rav Chisda Besandala Shetafachlo Rav Nachman Al Sandalo Kadam Nogea Al Regel Chaver, like you tap your friend quietly, so that he should get his attention. Armalei said, Lav Aminuach, did I not tell you Lo Titroid Alma, that you should not be tired of the world. Says Rashi, lo titrach b'kushiyos. You shouldn't engage in numerous questions when we're in the midst of a hesped. The hesped is the hesped. Mahaya shahaya kvar. What was from before. In other words, again, says, let's say Rashi, Kolomer, hahi shait havi v'lo yoiser. As you should only say what's being said. You don't have to start asking questions. Let the person speak, and that's it. Ki askua lohasam amrulei Rav Ami Rav Asi. They said to Rav Ami Rav Asi, Rav Huna Asi, the Rav Huna is coming. Amru, they said, Ki havin hasam lo havi l'dluyi reishin mine. Until Ki havin hasam, we went there. They didn't know how to lift up, literally his head from there. So hashda sinan hacha asa basrin. Should we now go and see him? So as they're basically saying that it would be difficult for us to do so. Rashi says v'yasin hacha desfurin shuhuchai. We thought that he was alive. So Amalei Arono ba, his Aron is coming. We're not talking about he's alive and they're nervous to see him. We're talking about, Rashi says again, because he was the Adam Chashav, the Haviloi Boishas Ludului Ration. They didn't want to lift up their heads that Rav Huna was so great. They said, "Don't understand. Rav Huna's Aron is here." So Rav Ami Rav Asi Nafik Rabbi Lo Rav Chanina Lo Nafik. Ikadiyam Rabbi Eloi Nafik, he went out. Rav Chanina Lo Nafik, Rav Chanina didn't go out. The Nafik my time on the Sanya Aaron Ha'ivrim Mamakam Mamakam Aimdinullah Bishura, because you're supposed to stand in a row. Yomullah Birchas Avelim Tanchumi Avelim. So that's why you're supposed to go out to be able to create this row. However, the Lo Nafak, those who did not go out my time at the Sanya, Aaron Ha'ivrim Mamakam Mamakam Eino Aimdinullah Bishura, but Eino Aimdinullah Birchas Avelim Tanchumi Avelim. You're not supposed to do so. So Kasha Hadadi. So which one is it? So Lo Kasha Kan Shildoi Kayemes, Kan B'Shein Shildo Kayemes. If the remains are still intact, Rashi says, Gufo Kayemes Yoitzin, then you can go out, then you do all these things. However, if the remains have already starting to decompose, Shein Shildo Kayemes, then you don't. Rav Huna Shildo Kayemes Avi. The reality is Rav Huna, he was still intact, his remains. The lo nafik lo simua kaimei. They basically did not realize, and that's the reason why they didn't go out. They thought perhaps his remains had decomposed. Question 11. First, let's do question 10. Ein karin el kroiv of shalmeis be'ezo oifen mayri she'ein chiyuv kriya el al kroivim. So if it's not a chacham, it's not an anam chashav, and it also was not that the person was present when the person died. Question 11. Madul lo yatzrav chanina. Why didn't he go out? Kishiavir b'mkoimo es arona shel Rav Huna b'likvura. Why didn't he come out? Because rak b'shil do kayemes yotzin. Only when the remains are intact. V'hu lo yada sheshil do kayemes. He didn't know that Rav Huna's remains were still intact. V'hu nafik u'stim ukame. Back in the Gemara Amri, they said heicha ninche. Rav Huna, who's the one that should basically bring Rav Huna into the proper burial place? So Kibetz Torah Yisrael. Certainly, that individual is a Kibetz Torah. So Rav Chia Kibetz Torah Yisrael. We know that Rav Chia was someone who's a Rebetz Torah Yisrael. Rav Chia Rebetz Torah Yisrael. So because he taught so much Torah, so maybe Rav Chia was appropriate. Havi man mile, so he was Havi. So man mile. So again, who should be the one that brings Rav Huna's remains? Amulhu Rav Chaga anomalina. I'll do it. To come to a Talmude because I have strengthened my learning. Ki havinim bar tamnit sari shnin when I was 18. V'lichazili carry. I never saw a similar mission. Umashmali kamei v'yade b'oivde. And it was heard in front of him that we know his good actions. The yoyim achad, one day is hafpicha le'ritzu the tefillin. It was turned over his tefillin straps. Yosef le'arboyin tanisa. because this one small little infraction, that his tefillin straps are on the wrong side. The black part was on the inside, and the outer one was this. So because of that, he fasted for 40 days. So Aile. So because of that, they in fact felt that Rav Chago was a proper candidate to bring him to the to his resting place. So he brought in the kever. Havigani Yehuda miyamine, diavua v'chizki mismoile. You had Yehuda on the right, and of the father, and Chizkiah on the left. Armo Yehuda lechizkiah, and these are already people who have died. Kum meduchtech. Let's get up from our place. The lav arach ar to come Rav Huna bahadei, because he's coming. So come bahadei. How we ever understand this, that they actually stood up even though they already had died. Moed the Nahara Chaze, there was Chaze Rav Chaga Ivis. So Rav Chaga, as he was bringing Rav Huna's remains, he saw a huge pillar of fire. Zakve Laroine, and he stood up the Aron, V'nafak, and he went out. Asa came V'haidalo Yanish, Anish Mishum de Zakve Larone de Rav Huna. The reason why he didn't get hurt by the flames is because the Aron of Rav Huna protected him. Kinach Nashid Rav Chisda, when Rav Chisda died, several Yusvi Sefer Torah Purye, they thought to put a Sefer Torah on his grave, on his casket. Rav Yitzchak Milsa del Rabbi will Sirle, something which his Rabbi doesn't hold of, namely Rav Huna, none Nakim nevertheless, so we should do it for him. Savadalo Mishlel Kiraihu. They were thinking that we should also not rehem that which was rended. As soon as you turn away from the casket, you can rehem the rip. When he died, Rav Hamnuna, askinu lahasam. So they brought the remains to there, as we continue to Chav Hamid Beis. Kimatu Gishra, when they reached, as Rashi says, Kishagil Avar Badavshal Gesher Kotzer, they reached this very small bridge. Kamu Gamale, Rashi says, Omdu Hagamolim, the camels stood still. The Noise Hamita Ismim Kaiman, and they were the ones that were carrying the remains. Amalahu Taya Mai Hai. So this Seicher Yishmaelim was said, what's going on over here? Why did they stop, these camels? They're actually giving each other honor. Mar Oimer Mar Nail Beresha, Mar Omer Mar Nail Beresha. Each of the remains are asking to give covet to each one. They said, you should go before me, you should go before me. So they ended up stopping. So Omer, so this merchant, Ishmaelite merchant said, Dinahu de Rabba bar Huna leil beresha. Rabba bar Huna should go first. So Chalav Gamle de Rabba bar Huna. So that camel that was carrying Rabba bar Huna's remains went. Noter kache v'shine dehutaya. And then while this happened, literally the teeth of this person fell out. Because he said that basically Rab Hamnuna is not as great, so therefore that was actually a lack of respect. So on this, a young child said the following, that Geza Yeshishim Allah Mibavel, that the a strong old root is ascending from Bavel. V'imo Sefer Melchamos. And with him is Sefer Melchamos, Rashi says is Sefer Torah. Ka'as v'kipoid huchpelu lirois b'shoid v'shever. That there was this double curse. Haba minishar katzav al alamai v'chamas mimenu nefashais. And this ended up taking away these souls. V'samach bahem kekalwa chadasha, but Hashem was happy regarding them just like a new bride. Roichev aravais. Look at Rashi. Leroy shoyd v'shever zeh shekatzaf hakadosh baruch hu el olamai. Hashem is angry on this world, but He's happy when it came to them. Sas v'samech b'vo elav nefesh naki v'tzadik. When it comes to a tzaddik that comes before him, he is joyful. Kinach nashi to Ravina. When Ravina died, Pasach Leahu Sivdana, they said the following eulogy regarding him. Timorim Heniu Roish, like the date palms that are shaking at the top, Al Tzadik Katamar, that a tzaddik is like this date palm tree. Nasim Leos Kiyamim, they make nights like days. Al Mesim Leos Kiyamim. Says Rashi, what does that mean? Behesped al Shisham Lelos Kiyamim B'Torah, that their nights were so filled with Torah just like one would learn during the day. Amar Rav Ashilabar Kipoik, Hahu Yoima Ma'amrat. What hesped basically will they say on that day? Namely, regarding about himself. Says Rashi, Havi Savduni. What will they say, Denach Nafshe, when I die? What are they going to say? So they said about you, Rav Ashi, Amalei Amina im be'arazim nafla shalheves. By the cedars it shall fall fire. Ma yasu ezoivi kir lev yasin b'chaka ho'alwa. That what will it be this to this hyssop in the wall that will be caught by a fish that is caught. Ma yasu digei rekak. What will it be for this little fish, benachal in the stream, that shaitif nafla chaka, that it's being swimming in these swift waters. Ma yasu mech gevim. What shall be for that which is in the small ponds. Amle baravin chas v'sholom dechaka v'shal heves, but tzediki amina, that when you're talking about being burnt with fire, it doesn't seem like it's a proper thing to be speaking about about a tzaddik. So what should you say? Amina, you should say b'chul avelim, cry to those mourning, v'lo aveda shehi umnucha v'anu anacha. That you should say that again, that this is a loss to those who are mourning. There was a loss, and we on this we are woeing and wailing. Cholish daite alei, so he felt bad. This hafuch karaihu, and he turned his legs backwards. Ahu yoima lo asa laspudne, and when Rav Ashi eventually died, he did not go. Behind the Amar Rav Ashi loibar kipoik cholitz loibar avin cholitz, which basically is saying that they will not do my hesped. Rava ki havi asa lediglas, when he got to this water, Armalei lebar avin kum ema milsa koi v'amar bo roiv shalishis b'mayim zachav arachim te'inu macharecha ki'isha mibala al taz nichenu ka'oisimei mara. Look at this Rashi, loy cholitz the hatayra amra v'choltza nalo mial ragloi v'lo mitachas l'ragloi. Roiv shlishis Yisrael nikr shlishis v'rav shokol karav Yisrael. You're saying that he was comparable to like a third or the majority of Klal Yisrael. Chanin Yochanan Zer Rabbi Yaakov Yosi Shmuel Chia Menachem Simon. Rabbi Chanin Chasne de Ben Nasiya Havi. So Rabbi Chanin was the son-in-law of the Nasi. Loika Havile Bnei Boy Rachme v'Havile. Hahu Yoima de Havile. Finally, the one day that he had a child, Noch Nafshe. Tragically, Rav Chanin ended up dying. Pasach Aleahu Savdana. So they said the following hesped regarding Rav Chanin. Simcha Latuga Nefcha. So the simcha, basically, that he was going to experience, unfortunately, turned into tragedy. Sasni Yagun Nidbaku Ke'es Simchasai. Nenach Ke'es Chaninasai Avad Chaninu. Asikule Chanan al Shmei. They called him Chanan on his name because his father died of Chanan, so therefore they named the child Chanan. Kinach nafshi Rav Yochanan pasach alei Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar kasha hayoim liyisrael kiyoim bo hashemish b'tzarayim. That this day was just as sad as the day in which the sun literally set in the mid-afternoon, which is referring to the death of Rav Yochanan. Tachsiv, the pasuk says, "V'yom b'yomahu v'hevesi hashemesh batzarayim v'yom Rabbi Yochanan ze yom shel Yeshayahu." That when Yeshayahu died, when Yeshayahu was killed, so on that day when he was called the sun. So when he died, it's like the sun stopped in the middle of the day, and therefore that was as tragic as the death of Rabbi Yochanan. Either it means that the sun literally stopped in the middle of the day, or there was darkness that came to the world because of the terrible tragedy of his death. And this is question 12. Al Eze Moed Omer Hanavi Amos B'Yomahu B'Havesi Shemesh V'Tzarayim, as referring to the death of Yeshayahu. Kinach Navshid Rabbi Yochanan, when he died, Yosef Rav Ami Shiva Ushloishim. So he actually sat Shiva, and he sat Shloshim for Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Abba Bereid Rav Chia Barabba Rav Ami Da'avad Lagarmihu Da'avad. What he did on his own. Dahachi Amar Rav Chia Barabba Amar Rav Yochanan Afil Rabba Shalundu Chachmo Inu Yoshev Lav El Yom Echad. You actually don't have to sit Shiva, you don't have to sit Shloshim, you sit for one day. Kinach Navshin Rav Zera Pasach Eliyahu Safdana. So he said the following eulogy regarding the passing of Rav Zera. He said, Eretz Shinar Chara, that this land which conceived Yolda and gave birth, Eretz Svi, which is referring to Eretz Israel, Gidla grew Shashua, these precious things. Shashueha. Oinola, woe to us, the Amar Rakas ki ibda klichem dasa, that has lost this beautiful vessel, which is again referring to Rav Zera. Kinach nashner of Avoi, achisu amude de kisari maya. They took the pillars of the Caesar and gave water. The Rav Yosi, let's see, it was Rashi, achisu haridu demois, because of the great level of tears. The Rav Yosi shafu marzve de tzipori dama, that in the time of Rav Yosi, the gutters were filled due to, again, these tears. Rav Yaakov is chamiu koichve biyoma. When it came to Rav Yaakov, Rashi says, Nira hakochavim, the stars were seen, shnishtan ha'olam mirov tsar. There was so much pain that you can actually see stars in the middle of the day. Rav Asi Yakri Kol Ilane, Rav Chia Nechisu Kefi Denura Mirakia. When it came to Rav Asi, literally the trees were ripped out. And when Rav Chia died, there was like a fire that came from the heaven. Rashi says, Avanim Shel Ur, these like stone pieces of fire flew out. The Rav Menachem, Rav Yosi, Ishtaut Salmaya, Vahavi Lamach Latsaya. Says Rashi, Nimuchu Partsuf Sholahen, that the image melted. Rashi says, Kalaimer Nechlaka, it was completely like smoothed out. These images were completely ruined. The Rav Tanchon Barchia is Katatsu Kol and Dartaya. All of the in his day, when Rav Tanchon Barchia died, it was chopped down, all of these trees. Rav Elyashav is Chasru Shivin Michatarta Benardo de Rav Hamnuna Nechisu Kefi de Barda Mirakia. So these are all like different terrible things that happened. Rashi says, Adarnta is Tsuras Salomim, again this image of images, Shoisim al Shem Hamelach Shemes, that they made regarding the king that died, Shivim Machtarin, the Ganavim the Bezchusi Loi Havi Asi Ganavim, that in the chus of this person who died, no thieves came. The Rav of Rav Yosef Noshu Kepe de Pras. What is this referring to? Hadadi. So Rashi says, Kipoi shel Gesharim, these bridges, Nishtabru, they broke, V'nashku Zuatzuli, they like kissed one another, they smashed down. The Bible Rav Noshu Kepe de Diglas, Hadadi. Kinach Navshin Rav Mishar Shiaton Dikli Shie. These trees grew Kaitzim, Rashi says they grew thorns. We're going to stop here. So basically, a lot of different terrible tragedies happened because of the loss of great tzaddikim. Okay. TB 14. Mace still another Purim Ababa. If you have a mace that did not cannot be moved out to the normal doorway. So the question is, Katan might see an ISO. How do you do it? What are you supposed to do? So it says, you could put the mace through a roof opening. You can move it to a more narrow casket to get through the door. However, you have to actually break the door in order to widen it like they did in the time of Rav Huna. Ad Kan.